When I started out in about 1980 collecting tools, one of the first things I bought was chisels for our first house, doing little jobs around the house. So that's got to make these 40 years old. These three chisels I bought, probably bought them from, I don't know, Chisels in Grimsby. And I can't believe that they're 40 years old. But anyway, I've looked after them and I never abuse them. But one of the banes of my life has always been sharpening them. Look at that one, that's a little beauty. I think that was a cheap Chinese one. Wooden handled, and it keeps a fantastic edge, possibly even better steel than these Stanley ones. Well, Stanley, possibly it's not the same quality as it used to be, but in 1980 I think the steel was better then than it was now. But so anyway, these have been my pride and joy for years. Then last year I treated myself to a set of 3 from Aldi. Aldi tools, fantastic. Never bought a bad tool from Aldi. And the steel feels nice. It's got a nice, it gets a nice catchy, snaggy edge to it, which I love. Well, the boring bit has always been sharpening them. And my old man taught me how to use a honing guide or honing gauge. So I had my oil stone, whetstone, and the honing gauge, honing guide, and you trap it in there. You set it up at the right angle. You look and get it flat, and you nip it up, and then you stand there like a zombie, going back and forth, and you move it left and you move it right, so that you don't wear a groove in the stone. Tell you what, let's put the camera up there. So yeah, you nip that up, get it to the right angle. You spend ages looking at the edge. Well, not ages. It's not that hard. I'm making it out to be bad, but it's not. But it always seemed to me, particularly if you caught a nail or a knot and took a notch out of the edge, which was quite deep, you'd have to go on and on and on and on to try and get the notch out. And it was just so tiresome. One of the worst things was putting an edge on. So a few years ago I was doing a bit of a job with a mate, sort of a mate. Well, he became a mate. At the time he was just an odd job man that was doing a job for us, and I was helping him. And I watched him sharpen a chisel with a belt sander. And it was a hot day, and he sat on his haunches on the floor, and he nipped his belt sander between his knees, and he was gossiping like these old boys do about this or that, and he just sharpened his chisel like it was nothing on a bloody belt sander. And I couldn't believe it. I thought I don't believe I've just seen that. It was just so effective. And I picked the chisel up after he'd done it, when he put it down, and picked hold of the edge, and it was lovely, and it had that lovely snaggy, catchy feel to it, like this little beauty. So I wanted to just show this chisel that I found and just have a little play with it and show you how I sharpen it on a belt sander. And it looks to me quite similar to this little one I've had for years. It's got that funny little foil sticker to it. It's probably a cheap Chinese one, and someone has seriously abused this. The interesting thing actually is, if you look here, it's very unsymmetrical, so that means it's probably handmade, which is quite sweet. I quite like that. But it's obviously been clobbered by anything other than a mallet, a lump of steel, or a hammer. It's got, someone's sharpened it and they've put a blue, they've got it too hot, they've got a blue stain across there, which means it's got too hot. But look at this. That's seriously been abused. The only thing I can think is that they've got it caught in a bench grinder. And I found over the years, I was really proud of my bench grinder when I first bought it. You know, these things. I thought, wow, I can do all sorts with that. But over the years I found that there's quite a limit to the number of things you can do with bench grinders. And one of the things you never do with a bench grinder is sharpen a knife on it or sharpen a chisel with it, because it just ends in tears. So I don't know whether you can see that. I'll just get my little grinderette wheel. This is a smashing tool. Let's use it for all sorts. Just polish that up so that you can see. I'm not sure if that shows up any better, but look at it. That's a real big gouge taken out of it. I'm sure it's been trapped in a bench grinder when someone's tried to put an edge on it. The edge is cockeyed, look. But I was pleased to find this. I can't remember where I found it, on the side of the road where a tradesman had probably pulled up, or something like that. And I was pleased to find it because I do like to have a tool, a chisel rather, which I can abuse. I don't like to abuse my favourite tools. I like to keep those sharp and look after them. But every now and again, you need a chisel that you want to abuse, whether it's scratching paint off a window or chipping putty out of a window, a broken window, before you put a new one in. It's just handy to have something that you don't care about, but that's got a very sharp edge to it. So I thought, right, that'll do. This can be my new abusable chisel. So I'll put an edge on it, and then that can go in the toolbox for the times when I want to do a rough job. So I thought I'd take this opportunity just to get the old belt sander out. But what I prefer to do is put it in the vise. Which way does it go? That way. So I shove it in there. This is by no means certain. It's not a fantastic way of doing it, but it does nip it. You're better off if you use a fairly fine belt. Is that any better? Have a look. Yeah, that's alright. Use a fairly fine belt. I've got to confess, what I tend to use is whichever belt is in it. If I'm in a hurry, I use. This one is sort of a bit too coarse, really. I think it's probably like the same as this, which is a, what is it, 40 grit or something. But anyway, it's good enough to show you what I want to show you. So you sort of hold it like that, and you need the blade going against you, away from you. I think I've got it right. Yeah. And you don't have the accuracy of that you would have with a honing guide. You've got to just kind of get in sync with it and feel your way. You'd know what I mean if you tried it. But it's a super quick way of putting an edge on a chisel when you're in a hurry. You've got a job to do, you've got to get it done, and you want to put an edge on it. Obviously I've got a bit of extra work here to do, because I've got to take that edge square rather than the off square that it is at the moment. So anyway, here goes. coming square, you can see that the bevel there is at a 90, sort of a 90. But on the side where it was a bit longer, I'm starting to get a wire edge, which my old man told me about all those years ago. And you know when you're starting to get a wire edge that you're getting there. And a wire edge is kind of a little piece of steel that's kind of a bit wavy, a bit floppy, a bit flappy. But there's a notch taken out of one end, which I hadn't noticed. So I've got some water over there. I'm just going to drop it in that because it's getting warm. But having said that, it never gets hot enough to turn it blue like this chump who's had it at some point before. It'll never go blue on one of these because they're a low revving thing, and it never turns blue. So let's just keep going. So I've nearly got rid of that notch on the left-hand edge there, corner, and you can see the wire edge all the way along now. And what my old man used to say was, get a piece of scrap wood and just drag it into the wood to get rid of the wire edge, which actually that's done a little bit. It's probably bent it over actually. And the other thing he used to do was just put it on the flat. There, that's dragged it out again. And even just he'd say just take a quick swipe, or even a slow swipe, to get rid of it. Because once you're at a wire edge phase of sharpening a blade, you've kind of gone as far as you can go with it. So that's got a bit of a snag to it. Not as much as I would like to feel, but I think this is too coarse. But certainly for a bit of rough work as it is, that would be fine. In fact, but I don't think I can go any further with that with this coarse, with that coarseness of belt. You know. And as I thought, I think this steel is reasonable quality. It's a bit of a shame that I don't have. The reason I didn't put a finer belt on it was because I haven't got one. I've got several coarse ones, but all the fine ones have probably clogged up and thrown away. But anyway, that's how I sharpen a chisel with a belt sander. And I'll probably get all the old boys saying it's disgusting, you should use a honing guide. Boring. Use one of these. Quicker all the time. Thank you very much.